Hello and welcome everyone to the fifth and final day of Educate, Elevate, and Celebrate Lunch and Learn Echo during the Massachusetts Week of the Young Child. My name is Kate Barlow. I'm the CDC's Act Early Ambassador for the state of Massachusetts and your host. Today, Pat Cameron, the Project Director of Family Ties, will be presenting What Do I Do Now? Helping families through the referral process. Thank you so much, Pat, for volunteering your time and expertise. I'm excited to hear you present.
Well, thank you and welcome everyone. I hope that you find this session informative. I would love to be able to entertain questions as we go along and hope that this is everything that you've been hoping to hear. So as Kate said, my name is Pat Cameron. I work here at the Federation for Children with Special Needs. And today we're really going to take a look at the who, what, where, and how to refer families. And for those of you who are doing developmental monitoring or screenings, and you come up with some concerns, both on your part and the parent's part, this session will hopefully help you through that. What do I do with this information? And we're going to offer some resources that you can pass along to families. So let's get started. So when you think about the developmental screenings or the tools that you are using, every EEC licensed program requires that every child care provider be writing progress reports on infants and toddlers every 3 months and on preschoolers every 6 months. And part of that should be based on data, good data that you are collecting, whether you've designed a tool, whether you have adopted a tool, and just knowing the difference between what a developmental monitoring tool is and what a screening tool is. And again, we're not about evaluating children at this time. We're really looking at observations on child development across the different developmental domains. And so you may be using a tool like Learn the Signs Act Early from CDC, which really goes in depth about what children typically do around this particular age, because every child is on their own trajectory. Children develop quicker in some domains and follow along a little bit later on in other domains. And so it's really important to fall back on that child development course we all had to take to get licensed, and to figure out where kids are in their trajectory. Or you may be using a screening tool like Ages and Stages or the Ages and Stages social emotional tool. So be thinking about how you're collecting data. You could be using something like Strategies Gold if it's connected to your curriculum, and be thinking about, what do I do with this information once you collect it? So here's just a sample. And again, these are some of the resources that I want to pass along of, what can you use when you're talking about tracking child development and monitoring? So the CDC offers a wide variety of free resources on their website. And so you can be thinking about sharing this with your families, because this mobile app can allow families to be tracking their child's development as well. And all of these are available through the Apple App Store and are free to providers as well as families. And you'll see that the checklists are available in multiple languages. So in addition to having those conversations with families, they can be looking at information in their own language, in their primary language. And so I really hope that you will access this information, provide it as a resource for families, even if you're using another tool, because the more information families have, the more apt they are to follow along with whatever recommendations you are making around referrals, if in fact the child shows some developmental delays in one domain or more. So again, think about the resources that you have available. Here are some more that you can that are provided by the CDC. How to get help for your child. So again, if parents are having a difficult time listening to the news that you have, and again, When you do progress reports and so forth, this should not be the first time they're hearing your concerns. You should really be communicating on an ongoing basis, making suggestions to parents when they go for those well child checks at their pediatricians, um, and so forth. But there are tools available on the CDC website for if you have concerns about a child's development. And again, you can proactively make these available to parents in their orientation when they visit your program before they even enroll. Let them know that your program is very concerned and very aware of child development. And you make it a point to be doing these progress reports on a regular basis. And you encourage them to bring their questions and tell them you will bring your questions. So again, this is a partnership with families and how you can really together be aware of children's development. Whoops, sorry, went too fast. So in the Learn the Signs Act Early, there are actually modules that you can use as training tools with your staff. And it's all about celebrating those milestones and sharing concerns. So if you have new staff, you can make this as part of your orientation. These modules are free online. You can have them as professional development. You can use them routinely throughout your program for children, both in the infant room, the toddler room, and the preschool room. And it's all encompassing. There's group discussions, there's a discussion guide rather to have with your group, and the resources are all free and available to you on the CDC website. And each one of these slides has links so that you can download and go directly to the sources. So given that we've talked about what the resources are about developmental monitoring and screening tools, what do you do with that information? And so the places to go depends on the child's age. So for infants and toddlers, and those are children birth up to their 3rd birthday, you want to look at early intervention. And anything over age 3, and even at 2-9, really, because the referrals can be made prior to the child's 3rd birthday, go to special education. And this is based on where the families live. Everything, it may be your program is in Boston, but the family may reside in Melrose. And so you want to be looking up the early intervention program assigned to Melrose or the special education program within the Melrose Public School District. And we'll talk about how you get connected to those. But it's not based on where your program's located. It's based on where the family lives, because each program is assigned a certain jurisdiction. In early intervention, it's called a catchment area, and they will provide those services. They can actually, if the family lives right in the same town as your program, they can be providing early intervention visits at your daycare, at your child care program, whether it's family child care, whether it's center-based care, Head Start, and so forth. So again, you continue this partnership with families in accessing services, needed services to boost a child's development. So Family Ties has right on its webpage, which is noted here at the bottom, how to find those early intervention programs. So again, you would go to familyties.org, and at the bottom of the homepage, or you can use this direct link, /#EI, and put in the town where the family lives. And it will pop up 1, 2, in Boston, there are 5 programs that service families who live in Boston. So again, once you find that program, you can give that information to families and you can help them. You get links to their programs' websites and so forth. And you could even look to see if they have an online referral form. Anyone can refer a child to early intervention or to the public school preschool. It Parents have to consent and so forth, but the referral can be generated by you, and you want to be helping a family through this process. And so if they're apprehensive, perhaps English isn't their primary language, and you want to help a parent through this process, you can go right online and fill out the application for them. It's short. Many of them are very brief. They don't ask a lot of demographic information until after a child is found eligible. And early intervention services for kids birth to 3 are free to families. They are funded through insurance, including Mass Health. The Department of Public Health, which is the lead agency, is the payer of last resort. And so if a family has no insurance, then DPH will cover the cost of early intervention. So again, these are all free services for eligible children. And again, early intervention is up to age 3. You can access information to have in your program around early intervention. These brochures and pamphlets are free on the Mass Clearinghouse website, the Executive Office of Health and Human Services, and the website is right there. Eligibility for early intervention is based on these criteria. A known condition, if a child is born with Down syndrome, if a child is born with a hearing disability, the child could have a developmental delay. They could do an assessment. Every EI program uses the same standardized assessment. And so that if you go to one EI program, you're likely to be eligible at any EI program because they use the same standardized assessment. Child can be eligible due to risk factors. The child is experiencing homelessness and the family is experiencing homelessness. The child was premature and it's unknown what the developmental needs of that child will be. That's a risk factor. And so they can be eligible based on that. And then there's this criteria called clinical judgment. And that's up to the individual early intervention specialist who does the assessment. And the child may score well, but they still have in their best clinical judgment a suspicion that this child ought to be eligible. And so eligibility for early intervention are based on these criteria. But again, I encourage you, as just being a child care program, that you order these free materials through the clearinghouse. They can be shipped directly to your program and just have them out as resources. In addition to doing progress reports, every licensed provider is supposed to have resources for families. And this could be a resource that just is out in a brochure rack in the entryway of your program, are part of your packet when you welcome families so that they know that you care about child development and you are on top of things when it comes to monitoring and helping families seek out the resources their child may need. So when a child is 3, and best to start again, like I say, at 2 years, 9 months, you really want to connect that family to the public school in the town where the family lives. So you can look on the individual school's website. You can look for special education. And typically for those preschool kids, it's under a category called Child Find. Every district is responsible for doing outreach to identify those kids who may or may not be in childcare, who may not be experiencing a quality early education and care program. And these are folks you could meet at the park when you're there with your toddlers and in your program. And, a parent is there with their own child and thinking about, I'm curious. And they ask you a question. This information is all public information and ought to be shared with any concerned parent or any concerned child care provider. So you really want to be doing your homework ahead of time so that when you're meeting with families, you have a little printout of where families can go. And again, The same with early intervention. It's the same with the public school. Anyone can refer, and the school will connect with the family. The EI program will connect with the family and saying, we received a referral. We'd like to, get together and do an evaluation and determine eligibility. Parent, of course, has to agree, but you can initiate the process as well. So for eligibility for special education, it is different from early intervention. And that's probably one of the most confusing pieces for families, because not every child who is in early intervention will be eligible for special education. I see some head nods here. And so it's important to know the distinction between early intervention and special education. So eligibility for special education is based on the fact that the child may have a disability. The category for developmental delay still exists and is an eligibility criteria for those kids up to age 8. Past age 8, they really need to be looking at assessments that hone in on the child's particular disability category. The federal government defines those disability categories. Early intervention, Massachusetts abides by the federal regulations, but also increased it to broaden their eligibility. Massachusetts has one of the broadest eligibility criteria for early intervention. Special education sticks right with the federal definition. Both are governed by the same federal legislation, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. Early intervention is called the Part C program, and special education is called the Part B program. I have no idea why B follows C, but that's just the way they did it. So the eligibility criteria for 3 to 5-year-olds is the child has to have a disability or a developmental delay, and it's not and or, it's and, so both things have to apply. They require specially designed instruction or related services to access the general curriculum. And for 3 to 5-year-olds, the preschool standards are what is held up as the general curriculum for the 3 to 5-year-olds. Many districts have embedded them now with their, and it has a continuum, the general curriculum of pre-K to grade 12. Some still have those as separate documents. And so if you have a preschool program, I hope that you are aware of the preschool standards and you are making sure that your program mirrors the preschool standards of what children, so that they're ready for kindergarten when they leave your program. So again, the site that I've noted here will lead you to all the resources, both within DESE, which is the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education here in Massachusetts, or I've noted the federal site for IDEA. The other caveat for preschool and eligibility is the federal government defines it as the ability to participate in age-appropriate activities. So it's the existence of a disability or a developmental delay and the ability to participate successfully in an age-appropriate activity. And that, for most children, is preschool. And so, be looking at the eligibility criteria. So where can you go for help? You can come to us. We are the federally funded parent center here in Massachusetts. Every state has one. And so if you have families who travel to your program from New Hampshire, from Connecticut, from Rhode Island, because their parents work here in Massachusetts and they commute here with their children, every state has what's called a parent center. And you can find them on a website called the Parent Center Hub, and it can direct you to the federally funded parent center in that state. Eligibility differs state to state for early intervention. In most cases, it's pretty standard for the special education. But these can be resources for you. We have an online intake form that you can fill out by going to the fcsn.org website. And there is one for early intervention, early childhood. You can click that and ask your question, and someone will get back to you within the next, day or two to respond to any questions that you have. Even if it's to come out and do a training with your staff, we're also happy to come out and do this training as part of your professional development. Excuse me, professional development opportunities with your staff. So I want to stop here and stop sharing just to open it up for any questions that you may have. And we're a good group here that we can just unmute and ask questions. If I would ask that if you have specific personal child-based questions, that you reach out via email or some other avenue with either that online form and so forth, because we do want to protect children's privacy in this arena. Okay. All right, I just wanted to wrap up by asking if there are any, general questions. I'm hoping that the resources that you received, I know you can download this presentation off the ECHO website, and all of those are live links so that you can have a field day with you and your staff on, accessing the different resources. I highly recommend those modules through the CDC, Learn the Signs Act Early, and use them as professional development. There's great role playing on there to be, how to have a positive, conversation with families. And when you have concerns, because the tools that are there, the tools both with ASQ and ASQASE, plus the Learn the Signs Act Early, those developmental checklists, you should be giving one to the family to fill out, as well as the ASQ, and one is for you to fill out. And then you compare, you sit together in a nice conversation in a comfortable place without distraction so that you can have a conversation. And there's great role model, videos on there, which really, talk about having those, because they can be difficult conversations to have. I don't want to downplay that at all. And take into consideration your background, the family's background, first child, middle child, not that birth order counts, but it does when it comes to parenting. Parents, are little scared deer in headlights with that first one. They're a lot relaxed when it comes to the second, third, and fourth. And so birth order counts in that regard. Culture counts. Culture is huge. There's still a lot of stigma when it comes to certain cultures about the acceptance of having a child with a disability. And so be gentle with those parents, be loving, be supportive, give it in small doses, and, but always follow through and, and give parents time. One of the programs that we offer here at the Federation with Family Ties is called Parent to Parent. And maybe a parent can, get reassurance by talking to another family with a similar lived experience. And that includes that cultural background. And so we have support parents who speak 16 different languages and can help connect a family just to talk what it was like about what they're feeling now and what it was like when their child was found eligible, particularly, with going from early intervention, even talking about the transition from early intervention to the public school can be a big transition. Because again, you're going from family-based to very child-centered. And, and it's just not the same. Hopefully the schools have wonderful parent engagement programs and the ability for families to be involved and engaged. But it's not EI. And so, there's just lots of differences. But they can be positive. If your relationships are strong, they can be very positive. Because change is hard for any family, whether your child has a disability or not. Change is just hard. moving from one program and transitioning to another, leaving behind preschool and going on to public school kindergarten can be hard. All of these life transitions are not easy. And so the more supportive you are, even for those typically developing kids, the families will appreciate you even more. So I hope that this was helpful. Please feel free to keep my contact information. The website was there on the final slide. And I can be reached at pcameron@fcsn.org. And Kate knows how to get me too. So,
Great. Thank you so much, Pat. This is really informative, and I just appreciate your expertise so much.
well, you're welcome. It was a little lesson in special education.